Jim Joyce, we made it another week.
Love it. Love it. Looking forward to this week. It's sunny in Europe.
It is. It
We're,
is.
we're
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I said we're going to be talking AI again. I think we're announced the get, but like it feels like artificial intelligence everywhere, right? Can't get
You
enough.
know, it's for me, it's a bit crazy that I kind of just not that I stopped paying attention. I mean, it's important and I still leverage it, but it almost became like part of, just like a daily routine, right? Like I'll instead of Googling stuff, I'm paying for Chat GPT service. I'm just asking it to summarize stuff for me, right? Like
Yeah.
it's been fantastic. So I'm not, anytime stuff comes up on TikTok, I just said not interested because there's a tool comes out every day, but I just can't keep up with it, right?
And are
So
you using it now? Are you checking in like honestly, are you using it like a
yeah,
couple times a week, once a day?
I mean, easily once a day.
Wow.
Easily
Wow.
once a day. And it's like I don't know, obviously nothing kind of proprietary, right? But just
Yeah.
like an article or whatever. Like sometimes I'm like, all right, give me
Right.
like another quick summary, or instead of
Right.
googling stuff and searching through results, like I'll ask a very specific question, right? And it gives me so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
It just and with the app now, it's just so much easier, right? So the Chat GPT app, it's
Yeah.
great.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
but anyway, speaking of being online, and you'll understand why, I'm gonna invite actually a guest, Ruth, and
Awesome.
and a very appropriate name because Ruth Guest.
She probably heard
Ruth,
that, I'm
Ruth,
assuming.
I know. Ruth, how many times have you
Good
heard
evening.
you're a great guest, Ruth Guest?
How's
First
it
time,
going,
yeah.
guys? How are
Nice to
you?
meet
Good.
you.
Nice to meet you, Jim. How are you getting on, Eugene?
Doing great. Great to have you here.
Good.
And I think you guys are sitting in the same country. Maybe I'm not
Yep.
sure if the same city, but and I know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ruth, you and I met months and months and months and months ago through the serendipity things. But I can't believe you two have not met, but here
Well,
you are.
Eugene
Yeah.
doesn't let me. He doesn't let me bring Irish people onto the show. I have to like he has to bring them on.
Uh,
So there's a whole like because at first I was trying to bring another Irish person onto the show. So thank God we got you through a little loophole here. We got
finally. Yeah. Very good. Where
But
are you based, Jim?
I'm Dublin.
You're in Dublin. Yeah, same here. Same here.
Yep.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Oh,
No,
okay. I couldn't remember where you actually sit in Ireland, but there you are. So maybe there's a drink to be had, a beer. But
yeah.
anyway, for our millions of listeners, Ruth, take us through your life journey. And as usual, Jim and I will sort of like zoom in there and interrupt and start wherever you want to
Yeah.
start with it.
Yeah, sure. Oh, God, okay. Well, where do I even begin? So I actually originally started out as a photographer and a creative, and I used to freelance a lot doing video work. I used to work in London for a lot of fashion brands. Then I moved into like marketing and branding and worked with entrepreneurs on their like founder story and their founder brand. Um, then actually what happened was I was in between loads of different jobs and I was like, God, I really want to travel Asia. Like I haven't done that. So I booked a one-way flight to Vietnam. And at the same time, I applied for this master's of science in cyberpsychology. And then literally 4 weeks later, the pandemic happened. So obviously couldn't go traveling. So I ended up doing a master's online while working. Now, obviously that was like torture. That was like 14 hours a day at the desk. Um, but it was amazing. And I really felt like my kind of experience of creativity and photography and marketing blended with psychology kind of gave me a different shift of focus in life. Um, so while I was doing that, I was looking into avatars and communication online because obviously everything was through Zoom and FaceTime and Teams, and everyone's Wi-Fi connection was appalling. So I was looking at avatars and how we can communicate through that, and I was like, wow, I was like, what if avatars could deliver therapy? What if there was something there where we could replicate human empathy? And so I was really looking into that, and then out of that came Sersha, which is what I'm working on now. Now, Sersha is nowhere near what it was when I thought of it doing my master's, but um, that's kind of where I'm at now, and it's been an interesting journey to say the least, but there's still a few more years to come, I'm sure.
And what is cyber psychology?
So it's basically how we interact with technology, how we present ourselves on the internet, how people interact in gaming, online dating. Then there's also like cybersecurity elements as well. So it's basically everything around technology and the internet and how we interact with it.
And
wow.
is it more from the kind of the user / consumer behavior perspective, and what's in our psyche that makes us interact or makes us not interact? And of course, we're all unique. Or like, give us maybe like examples of applicability of it, which I think there's a billion of them, right? Or
100%. So it's all contextual, like all pieces of psychology. It's based on research, but you can't say, for example, if someone says a certain word online, it means that they're this kind of person, because it's all contextualized based around culture and nuances and this kind of thing. But for example, like I did my thesis on how people present themselves on TikTok, and in relation to like self-concept clarity and self-presentation online. And some of what we found was fascinating, but it really is about, usually when people present themselves on social media, they present, let's say, like an ideal self online, you know, so that's like your filters on Instagram and, you know, trying to like look good. You've got the Lamborghini in the house and whatever. In real life, you're driving a Ford Fiesta, something like that. But
yeah, like Eugene's like 10 pounds heavier. He's got a thinning app on
exactly.
right now.
Well, I was going to tell another quick
I don't have any
story.
hair. I don't have any hair.
On TikTok, you talk about everybody presenting their best, right? So I actually had, not many people know at all, because I like kind of deleted the account after a while. But the girls were home for a couple of weeks, and they're like, you know, you love like I love cleaning the kitchen, right? Like it for me, I don't know why, it's like a mental break. I put my headphones on and I'm kind of like just, you know, whatever. And so the girls are like always impressed because I have like my routine and it's like spotless afterwards. Like, why don't you just like put that on TikTok? So for like 2 weeks straight, I was the kitchen cleaner, right? And so that was the thing. It was definitely not presenting my best forward, right? No Ferraris or whatever. But
that sounds like a terrible movie.
Yeah.
a horror movie, but
cleaning on TikTok. Yeah. And no, I actually think though, like with TikTok, it was completely different from other social media like platforms. It was more so about like creating your own movie or creating like your showcasing your fun self rather than your ideal self, which is really interesting. Okay. But I think like presenting authenticity on social media is definitely something that's becoming more at the forefront. And that's what I really like, with kind of what I'm doing in LinkedIn and putting up videos and stuff about my entrepreneurial journey of building Sersha, is that it's almost like an insight into my life and representing myself in the most authentic way that I can, because I think honestly, there's not great stuff on social media. People are not themselves. So I think we need more of that, you know?
But is that how it says? Okay, so your thesis was how people represent themselves on TikTok.
TikTok specifically,
and there was like a fun, authentic side, or that's what they were trying to get to. It
Pretty
wasn't just
much,
how beautiful I am, or kind of a dating thing, or it was like.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little bit more authentic, I thought was really fascinating, because like also other social media platforms are completely different. So TikTok is one of the most popular ones now. It's like over 1 billion downloads. So it kind of shows how people are representing themselves online is almost completely shifting in the kind of the internet landscape. So yeah, fascinating stuff. But I think that could be a certain way of how cyber psychology is implemented. One of my lecturers is actually a specialist on online dating. So she would, you know, give people talks around how people present themselves online, how to look out for catfishes, things like that as well. So that could be another way that cyber psych is kind of implemented in the real world.
Okay, that's wild. And it's moving, right? It's moving so fast, because like we would have grown up on, or I would have, like, I'm probably old here, but would have grown up on Facebook, right? You know, so sorry about that.
No, all good. I'm gonna actually, maybe before we get to Sersha, because love to dive in, and actually I've been again, you know, as I open up LinkedIn once in a while, I see your very sort of transparent post, and I love it. Like, I actually think, you know, entrepreneurs should do more of that, to be frank. But before we get to that and your own journey on it, I know you mentioned kind of where you went through photography and branding and marketing, you were helping other entrepreneurs kind of build, right? So what were some of the things that you were seeing with other entrepreneurs that you might be taking forward, right? Like some of the lessons learned, some of the things that you saw, like, you know,
Yeah.
really shouldn't be doing this, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, obviously, when I was working for the entrepreneurs, I was working freelance, you know, and I never thought, I didn't think I'd be maybe doing a tech startup. I knew I'd be doing something of my own at some stage, but never really in tech. But the lessons that I learned from them would be, oh God, there's loads, but definitely one of the biggest ones would probably be taking your ego out of the work. And learning how to delegate, I think, is really important. Learning how to delegate tasks and working as a team. But I think that's so important for anyone in business, especially if you're starting something, because if you're so passionate about it, you can become so embedded in it that you don't want to share the work. And I think I'm guilty of that as well. That's something that I've definitely seen working with other entrepreneurs, but they were young at the time. I'm sure they're different now. If they're listening, I hope they're not offended. But
they don't want to share. They don't want to share what they're working on, or their ego is so tied up in it that they have to be right, or
more so kind of having to be right, but also in terms of there's so much workload that you can't delegate because you don't think other people will do a great job. Do you know that 100%. Kind of way? Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, that would probably be the biggest thing that I learned from working with founders. Another thing was something that amazed me was some of their organizational skills, like being able to prioritize and organize themselves and organize their day like to a T. I was like, Jesus, these guys are machines, you know? Yeah, some of them are absolutely incredible. So I learned a couple of tricks from that too. Okay. I'm still not great at it, but getting there.
Yeah, I think I could use that.
Yeah.
And so let's start getting to the Sersha, right? Because I know, again, I think we've connected. You had a early concept, and you even mentioned earlier that it's not what it was when you originally thought of it, right? So maybe kind of take us back to the original spark,
the inspiration.
Yeah, sure. So, well, there's obviously a mental health crisis globally. I don't need to actually talk about the statistics and the facts and the figures, especially with adolescents. It's growing. It's really there. Everyone knows, has a handful of stories from personal experiences of kids suffering with their mental health. And there was kind of two facets to it. Like, there was the whole photorealistic avatars and communication. And I was like, God, that'd be really cool for therapy and empathy. And then I was looking at this problem with kids, especially in Ireland. Jim, you might know about this. It's very difficult to get a psychologist at the moment for therapy because the waiting list is so long, because there isn't enough therapists in Ireland. And I think that goes for a lot of countries in Europe, and then looking at the States too. Yep. So I was like, right, wow, what if you could use these photorealistic avatars with therapists for these kids? So then I started thinking about my own story. And that was like when I was 11, when I was a preteen, there was so much going on in my life between, like, there was a big family fallout. I was being bullied. I got like this massive anxiety disorder. But my parents, bless them, they didn't know what to do because, God, that was 20 years ago. So they didn't have the skills to support. And it only kind of got worse throughout my teen years because of, well, technology was a massive influence because we got phones and there was Bebo and MSN, and it was that whole kind of rise of technology there, of social media. But then there was also elements of getting into wrong crowds and this kind of thing. So I really feel that from a personal level, if I had the support I needed when I was a preteen, I got the help, my life may have taken a different course now. I don't regret anything now, thank God. But it's interesting that I kind of believe that if kids get the support they need at that age before they reach the teenage years, which are crucial years,
Right.
I do think that they'll be able to maybe potentially reach self-actualization later on in life, which is great.
Yeah.
So that's where Sersha was. Like, yeah, it's like cool. Therapy through avatars, like amazing. Would love that. You can do big research, R&D development on it. Be amazing. Get into like med tech space, fantastic. Make it a clinical product. And my God, it is nothing like that now.
Okay.
You know, getting a clinical product out there, almost impossible. Getting it regulated unless you're in the space and you know it really well and do it from the very beginning. I decided very early on that that can't be the path for me, because I knew it would just fail straight away. So
There's
wellness.
also, there's
Go
also
on.
like,
Yeah.
sorry, just wanted to interrupt. Like, there's also the founder market fit, right? Everybody talks about the product market fit, but there's also a founder market fit. Of course, you
Completely.
can scale and bring people that
Right.
know the market, right? But I
Yeah,
like how you said,
exactly.
like, it's not for me, right? That's what sort of resonated
Mhm.
with me a bit, that it's not for me, right? I'm not the right founder to take the clinical route, or yeah.
Exactly. And I think like that was a really good learning curve, because, and I'm so happy I learned it earlier on, because I've saved myself so much time because of it, and so much energy and resources too. So it kind of moved towards more like a wellness avenue, let's say. And once again, skeptical of some of the wellness products out there, just because they might not be as regulated as we want them to be. Did like a mock-up, show the avatars to kids. I was like, oh, what do you think of this? This is cool, isn't it? And they were like, that's so weird. Why would I want that, you know? And I was like, Jesus, all right. So kind of went back to the drawing board. I was like, nah, there's still a problem here. I'm going to try to fix it. And then spoke to loads of kids and was like, what do you like? And they're like, we like Roblox. We like games, you know? It's like, cool, let's make a game. Let's integrate this avatar as your companion in the game. So kind of worked on that for a while. And once again, hit a massive roadblock. I was like, how am I going to get this to market? Because the gaming industry, if you want to build an MVP, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and you need a team. And I'm a solo founder with very little financial funding at the moment, so it's almost impossible. I'm sure I could do it, but there was a bigger problem at play, is that like I didn't know the actual problem at hand. I think it's okay to admit that, because I'm still so early days. There's obviously a mental health issue with kids, right? But there's something else, there's something deeper than that. And I was chatting with one of the girls in my cohort in this program I'm on called New Frontiers, and she was saying to me how her 6-year-old wants a phone. And they were talking about it inside the school playground, and the parents were like, oh, you know, what age is your kid getting a phone? Whatever.
Right.
And I was like, what? Like 6 years old getting a phone?
Sounds pretty young. It sounds pretty
That's
young.
insane. I don't have any kids, but my God, like I don't think I don't know. It didn't sit with me. And
I mean, we're in that, what
yeah.
was it, like iPad generation? Like, you know, the kind of the
Yeah.
newborns are already swiping, right? Like it's like ingrained in like you're born swiping now.
Yeah.
Maybe the next generation.
It's funny. My sons, we had to talk my sons into getting phones.
Really?
Yeah. It was kind of wild. Yeah,
they're like, we don't want to be as crazed as our dad.
Yeah, totally. No, but they didn't want to. They were really, well. My oldest was my oldest was interesting, but he didn't want to be a prisoner to the phone. Like, he was just seeing his friends on it that were on it for years, and it was. But we just logistically couldn't pick him up from school or whatever or something. So we were like, come on, please take a phone, But he didn't want it.
Wow. God, he was really an outlier there.
Yeah, he was freaked out by the bullying.
They just didn't want to be in the same Find My Friends group with you, Jim. That's they didn't want to be found.
I don't think it's as nefarious. I think he was like, he didn't want the whole bullying and the whole that whole exposure. Like, he was watching his friends be like tortured by it, and he just was like intuitive, But
God, what a smart kid.
Yeah, he's much smarter than me. He's much smarter. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. But I saw this thing, and I was like, oh, these kids are getting phones so young nowadays. And it made me back to my original story, and like I said to you, I had these issues, but they were exacerbated by technology because I was distracting myself from the real issue at hand.
Right.
And did a bit of research. Obviously, I've been speaking to a lot of parents, and what we're seeing is that this mental health issue with kids is really correlated with the use of technology. Now we can't say it's a causation because it's contextual. Every single child is completely different. But what we're seeing is that more and more research is saying kids with their phones, it shouldn't really be a thing. They're too young to be exposed to what we're exposed to. Their brains aren't fully developed for that. Exactly. So so this is the path that Sersha is now currently taking. Instead of it being a game, it's more so a product for the family to empower and educate preteens and parents around the use of technology and the internet and well-being and managing that before they get their phone. So think about it like, you wouldn't give the keys of your car to your kid without driving lessons. And it should be the same with this. Basically, just education around it.
Nice. And where are you at right now? Have you raised? So you're trying to raise some money. You raise money, or you're funding it yourself, or?
I wish. So I'm on Enterprise Ireland's New Frontiers program, and
Awesome.
so we've a couple of months left in that, and then God, what I'm going to try to do is raise, but I'm working freelance, so I'm going to give myself a bit of runway. And I'm solo founder. Like, I was thinking of getting a technical founder, just going to build this product, but with something like this, I can build mock-ups myself. I could do product myself and maybe outsource the tech. So it's a case of trying to get runway to continue to do the market research for 6 to 9 months before even getting a product out there. And building that community of parents, I think, is really important too, because they're going to be the people that shape this product, because they're the ones that essentially are going to be using it. It's a product for them and their kid.
There was a term, my daughter actually goes to fashion school, and she was doing something report, and instead of consumers, they were calling prosumers. So it's somebody who is basically participating with you, right? Along the way to actually build the product. So who knows, some of those parents might be, CTOs, technical people or whatever. Right? So
exactly.
Rope them
insert the delivery of the product will be through an application, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I think maybe through a web app would be the best thing. So what will happen is that, like, how I envision it, and then the architectural framework may be a game for kids. So kind of e-learning, potentially Duolingo type style, but not Duolingo. But the parents, this is where it's most important, is that the parents will learn communication frameworks. And they will have a resource hub for their kids around different products, so like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, then all the parental guides, the controls, because that's where the issue is. There's so much on the internet, but they don't even know where to go or where to ask or who to ask. So they would receive notifications then on the kids' process as well, or their progress. So let's say, for example, little Johnny gets like 95% on Snapchat and friends. It can be like hooked up through an API to the Revolut account. So the parent can be like, oh, great, well done, Johnny, hits a button, and it's like €8 into the Revolut. So it kind of incentivizes them to learn, but then also at the end of it, they get this phone. And then they have these communication frameworks for life to communicate with their parents as they go through their teenage years. So just
awesome.
Increasing their emotional resilience and their well-being. Well, it's cool.
If you can figure it out, I totally would have bought that product. Like I was thinking about, I have no clue what my poor kids are. It's just an absolute nightmare.
Well, you send them out to the world. You send them out to this crazy world, right? And but exactly. It's interesting. But why don't we go? We can dive deeper into so many different topics. But I think Jim, take us to the big question here.
No. So I love this. So in an alternative universe, right? There wasn't COVID, and you headed off to Vietnam. So you didn't go to Vietnam, right? You didn't go to Vietnam.
No, still haven't gone, but that's okay.
and so okay, so here we're gonna play this. So So a version a version of Ruth went off to Vietnam and did this psychology course, right? So I mean, this is kind of a wild one. So usually we ask you, what would you give advice to your younger self? But I feel like that was like 24 months ago. So so this person went off and did the cyber psychology course, and then you stayed in Ireland. The other version, you know, whatever was a splitting like the sliding doors version of yourself, stayed in Ireland, right? You stayed in Ireland, you built this incredibly successful company. Every family across Europe merging into the US are using your technology to appropriately train people in there. And anyways, you bump into the other version. She says, I'm starting a company. I'm starting a company right now. And after all these learnings, what advice would you have given to your alternative version of yourself when she's starting that company?
Oof,
wow, Jim.
okay. That's really good. I like that. I'd say probably two things. I would say take as many risks as possible while you can. And then I would also say don't book unnecessary meetings because your time is precious.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great,
yeah.
great,
There's,
very tactical, very tactical advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a bit
Ruth,
wild.
Yeah.
Ruth, you've been a great guest.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice. It's also so good to meet you, Jim.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Let me know if you need any help. I've raised a few bob in Ireland once in a while, so
Yeah,
we can
cool.
see.
Thank you. And Eugene, it was such a pleasure to see you again as usual.
Same. And good luck to you and to all our listeners. Hit subscribe, pass it on, and we'll most likely see you next week.